Welcome to another episode of Just My Opinion podcast. It's your host, the boy with the most. And nevertheless, I'm the best. Let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. 4 a.m. in the morning. We're grinding early in the morning. So let's get it in. So today we're going to be talking about Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is right now living on the planet called delusional. Kyrie Irving is living on the planet of delusional. So for the past couple of weeks, Kyrie Irving, as well as Kyrie Irving's name, has been in the news. Kyrie Irving has a Twitch account, and he's been echoing his thoughts and his opinions on that Twitch account, basically playing Grand Theft Auto, which, by the way, hey, if that's your game, that's your game. But Kyrie Irving has been on Twitch talking about mimicking fans and what fans have said to him and things of that nature, talking about the future of the Brooklyn Nets. Does Kyrie Irving even have a future with the Brooklyn Nets? He's been really utilizing his Twitch account, basically spewing his opinions. Nothing wrong with that. But Kyrie Irving has been taking a lot of L's for the past couple of weeks. Nike is going to stop making Kyrie Irving's signature shoe. And I guess if you read the article, yes, they're not extending they're not going to extend the contract of Kyrie Irving, and they're doing it on a case-by-case basis. I guess they're in Nike's eyes, they're looking at it as, we're going to get a full fulfillment from Kyrie Irving as far as how available he's going to be in the up and coming season. So they're really taking a wait and see approach. It's not like they're no longer they're just giving him a year to prove himself. And I'm pretty sure if Kyrie Irving really proves himself and show he really is interested in basketball, which, by the way, I have already told you guys in videos and live streams, Kyrie Irving isn't really, his basketball is not his 100% priority. It's on the priority list, but it's not the number one priority of Kyrie Irving. As well as you heard in the past couple of days and couple of weeks of Sean Marks. Sean Marks had a sort of a State of the Union with the media members talking about Kyrie Irving and Kyrie Irving's future, as well as the future of several other players of the Brooklyn Nets, but most notably Kyrie Irving. So now Kyrie Irving has a demand that he wishes that the Brooklyn Nets execute. And Kyrie Irving wants total say-so of the roster, who's going to be on the roster. And he uses an example of, he brought Kevin Durant to the Brooklyn Nets. Therefore, he should get the same privileges of one LeBron James. And he should have some type of influence or say-so with the roster as far as signings and trades and draft, going through draft picks and things of that nature. He wants that same type of power that LeBron James had in Cleveland. He really didn't have it too much in Miami, even though Pat Riley allowed him to voice his opinion. A lot of people seem to forget the Miami Heat did LeBron James a solid. They drafted a player that LeBron James wanted, and that player had no help for the Miami Heat's organization. and they did allow LeBron James to have some type of some say so as far as who is on the roster, but not total say so, and that's why that relationship deteriorated. And he went to Cleveland the second time around, and Cleveland allowed him to basically control the organization. And at one point with the Los Angeles Lakers, he had that type of control. But I don't think he has that control. If you've been reading published reports, he no longer has that control now, because the Los Angeles Lakers, with his wishes and his blessings of getting Russell Westbrook, they traded for Russell Westbrook, even though the Los Angeles Lakers organization had a better theory on how to make that roster better. And we done discussed about it on my live stream videos. Go check that video out. I'm not going to regurgitate what Magic Johnson said on Get Up, as well as First Take, of the Los Angeles Lakers viewpoint of players that they wanted to sign, possibly getting DeMar DeRozan, signing Alex Caruso instead of letting him go to free agency, and getting Buddy Hield. But the Lakers chose a different route, just to make LeBron James happy, to get Russell Westbrook. So you see how that turned out. So basically, Kyrie Irving wants that type of ability. And when you look at it, influence as far as who they should sign for the Brooklyn Nets roster. I think Sean Marks has done an excellent job getting the players needed, even before and after Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant signed with the Brooklyn Nets. I think he has done an extraordinary job. I feel like that job should be for the GM. You don't see GMs going in the gym trying to shoot layups. I feel like if you want a well-run organization, players should play, coaches should coach, and general managers should manage their teams, and owners stay in the box and just own. I feel like everyone has a responsibility and an obligation that they should fulfill. And when you stretch yourself thin, you have issues like what we're looking at today with the Brooklyn Nets, and like what we're looking at with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I also told you guys, I feel like those days are done. I don't think organizations are going to allow superstars to have total say-so on the roster. Maybe the coach, but as far as what they do with the roster, I think those days are done. And two, I feel like if you look at today's athletes, they're not even into that mindset of, I want total influence and say so on who we choose in the draft or who we sign on the roster. They may go to as far as, they wanted to be heard, but not total say so. And that's what Kyrie Irving is looking for. And unfortunately, Kyrie Irving is in a proof, he doesn't realize it or not. I'm pretty sure he realizes it now, ever since Nike is no longer making the shoe. Kyrie Irving is living in delusional land. He really is. And I believe Kyrie Irving is at the crossroads of, he has to show, he's going to have to do a lot of campaigning and showing not only the Brooklyn Nets, but the rest of the league that he's a full-time player. The best ability, folks, is availability, and Kyrie Irving has been unavailable. Now, set aside the injuries, but Kyrie Irving has missed significant amount of games, not only with the Brooklyn Nets, but with the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Plus, he's spewing this image of himself that basketball isn't his number one priority. It's not high on his list. Again, Kyrie Irving's priorities as far as what basketball means to him on his list is not at the top tier. And that's alarming and concerning not only for the Brooklyn Nets, but for any organization that's going to take Kyrie Irving, to sign Kyrie Irving to a max contract. You have to be totally committed for organizations to sign you to a max contract. If you don't believe me, look at James Harden. I think, what you have seen with James Harden with the Philadelphia 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers organization, and I don't think they're at this crossroad because of who's the GM for the Philadelphia 76ers. He has a long history with James Harden. And as long as he has him in his corner, he's going to get his max contract. But just if it was a different GM, and if they're looking at James Harden, they're going like, okay, we're not getting the same James Harden that was scoring all those points and breaking records and things of that nature when he was with the Houston Rockets. We're getting a James Harden that's 3 or 4 tiers below that James Harden. Even Joel Embiid admitted to, when they lost in the series to the Miami Heat, that we're not getting James Harden from the Houston Rockets. We're getting a James Harden that's tiers below of that version. But if there was a different GM for the Philadelphia 76ers, the talk and discussion on the table would be, can we sign James Harden to a max contract? Are we okay with James Harden's performance? What have we seen thus far that alerts us that we should sign James Harden to a max contract? I don't think so. But like I said, he has a long, outstanding relationship with the GM, with the Philadelphia 76ers. He was the GM for the Houston Rockets. He was the one who orchestrated to get James Harden over he placated to James Harden. He gave James Harden everything he wanted, and if it means killing the roster and losing your talent and your draft picks, he was willing to do that to satisfy and make James Harden happy. And the Houston Rockets, if you look at them right now, they're starting all over. Even though the future is a little bit brighter for the Houston Rockets, I don't think they're going to be a team that's going to contend and win titles, but I do think they're going to be a highly competitive team. It took them a couple of years to find their way, but they found their way. But if you look at Kyrie Irving is stuck in that same mindset of the LeBron James era, where player empowerment. I don't think that era no longer exists in today's basketball for 2 reasons. One, a lot of organizations are staying packed, and they're not going to allow a player to have total say-so of the organization and the roster. Look at all the examples of organizations that allowed a superstar to control and dictate what they have on their roster, and what's the end result? Yes, if you want to make the case that LeBron James going to the Los Angeles Lakers and allowing him to have that power, they wound up ending up with a championship in a shortened season with a break in between the seasons. And you're going to utilize that thought and that theory that we should allow players to have even more player empowerment, then you're slightly wrong. Look at after that championship. LeBron James still had those abilities and that say so. And look at where the roster is at today. Last year, that type of decision making only got the Lakers to the play-in tournament. This year, they couldn't even make it to the playoffs. Look at Kevin Durant. Even though Kevin Durant doesn't really swing that stick, he does have the ability of total influence and say so of the roster alongside Kyrie Irving. And to be honest, if Kevin Durant wasn't there and if Kevin Durant wasn't standing in front of Sean Marks and saying, hey, look, don't trade Kyrie Irving, Kyrie Irving would have been already gone. He would have been already traded. But Kevin Durant likes Kyrie Irving. He considers Kyrie Irving a friend, and that's why Kyrie Irving is still with the Brooklyn Nets. And that's why the Brooklyn Nets are putting up with Kyrie Irving. But there are limitations to what they're dealing with Kyrie Irving. Sean Marks, if you paid attention to what he said in that press conference, Sean Marks basically said that, hey, if you really want to, if you really want that max contract, you're going to have to show and prove. And it's not only from that press conference, he have said that a multitude of times during this season. People seem to forget in the beginning of the season, they pulled the contract. As far as contract negotiations, they pulled that contract off the table, and they haven't put that contract back on that table because Sean Marks wants Kevin Durant to fully be aware and Kyrie Irving to fully understand and be fully aware that if you want a max contract, then we expect maximum effort out of you, meaning that you can't just miss games just because you want to miss games. The COVID situation, the COVID decision that Kyrie Irving made, that was a total nightmare for Kyrie Irving's image, his brand, and his reputation. Your reputation precedes you. And that was just the cherry on top of destroying Kyrie Irving's what little reputation that he had in this league. Because remember now, folks, he has done this on other stops. He's done this with the Boston Celtics. Look at the Boston Celtics now. They're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. There was one point of time Kyrie Irving was a member of the Boston Celtics. There was one point. There was a point in time where when Kyrie Irving missed half the season with the Boston Celtics, they even went further without Kyrie Irving than they did with Kyrie Irving. It was not that long ago, folks. Kyrie Irving was missing games for the Boston Celtics due to personal reasons. The same garbage he was doing in Cleveland, he was doing with Boston. If Kyrie Irving if he feels like he's the next superstar, he feels like he's a leader, you have to show it. And if Kyrie Irving was able to show it, if Kyrie Irving would allow the coaches to coach and just play his role, just like with the other players on that Boston Celtics team, he will still be a member of the Boston Celtics, and he will be fulfilling the fruits of labor of what the Boston Celtics have done, which is they are the representatives of they're in the Eastern Conference Finals playing against the Miami Heat. Good luck with that, Boston, by the way, because Miami Heat is not an easy out. If Kyrie Irving would have took the vaccine, just like the rest of his teammates did in Brooklyn, who knows what position the Brooklyn Nets would have had at the end of the season, and who knows how long they would be in the playoffs. But you can't be half man, half a season. That's what Charles Barkley said. You can't just play when you want to play, and when it's playoff time, you're really not contributing to the chemistry of the team. And Kyrie Irving is at a roadblock. Now, NBA radio, there was these two guys that were arguing. One was an ex-coach, and another one was an analyst. I think he was the ex-coach of. I think his last coaching stand was with the Toronto Raptors, and I keep forgetting the guy's name, and I do apologize. But they did talk about this briefly about Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets stand against Kyrie Irving, and they basically, he basically implying the analyst is implying, Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets organization needs to take back control of this organization moving forward. Look at what they done when they didn't have Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. They had a decent team. They had a team that was going into the playoffs. They also had a coach on the bench that was getting less with. Was getting more out of less with that roster. That roster was not blessed with superstars. That roster was not a super team. Now, when you import Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, that new version, that new roster hasn't even gotten you to the NBA Finals. At one point of time, you had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden, and that was supposed to be the new big three. How far did that team make it, by the way? Did they even make it to the finals? No. That team was good enough, even with one person injured. That team should have still been good enough to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, but they didn't. And now you look at that team now, they had to go into the play-in tournament with a Kyrie Irving and a Kevin Durant. You even brought in more talented players, even though I felt like there was no possible way you could have gotten Ben Simmons on the roster, but still, that's your future. And even if you would have lost deep into the playoffs, the future still looks bright for the Brooklyn Nets when you compare it to other organizations such as the Los Angeles Lakers. But you have to have commitments, not only towards the organization in the front office, but you also have to have commitments to the players. And is Kyrie Irving totally committed to this organization? We don't know. Still to this day. Is Kyrie Irving going to give them the same antics that he's been giving the Brooklyn Nets? If you look at Kyrie Irving's past, if you reward him with a max contract, you lost the power. You basically are at his mercy. You can find him. You can bench him. But is Kyrie Irving going to be mature enough to understand that, look, everybody in every walk of life, in every type of job, there's responsibilities and obligation. And when you don't fulfill those responsibilities and obligations, there are consequences. Most good employees that's borderline good understands that. Your great employees, your good employees, they're not even going to allow that to echo in their brain or creep in their soul. You can always depend on them. Because, like I said, the best ability is availability. Kyrie Irving is still talented, but the one ability that he struggles with the most is his availability. And we're not putting the injuries to a side. Again, if you look at what Kyrie Irving has done, not only in this team when he took in personal days off, but with the Boston Celtics as well as the Cleveland, I don't know why I want to say Cleveland Browns and Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you look at those three organizations, those three stops, Kyrie Irving has been doing pretty much the same thing. And once again, I feel like sometimes people get drunk off of other people's influence. Kyrie Irving saw LeBron James wielding his sword against the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. And basically, the Cleveland Cavaliers organization was at the mercy of LeBron James, trying to make LeBron James happy. And Kyrie Irving looked at that and say, hey, if we're in the player empowerment era, if LeBron James can wield that power, how come I can't wield that power? If it wasn't for that late game shot, we wouldn't be in the position of winning a title in the first place. I feel like a lot of people get drunk off of other people's influence. And they get so drunk, they get so intoxicated, they don't see the forest from the trees. And Kyrie Irving thinks he's that guy. He's a LeBron James type of guy who should have total say-so and player influence with the roster and the organization. You got Kyrie Irving spewing stuff as far as we don't need a coach. Me and Kevin Durant could coach the team. You have had Kyrie Irving make ridiculous statements such as he too should have a say-so with the organization moving forward, just like Sean Marks does. And that's where we are with Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is on Twitch playing Grand Theft Auto, which, okay, I play video games as well. I'm not a huge fan of Grand Theft Auto. Yes, I know it's extremely popular and things of that nature, but hey, it is what it is. If that's what Kyrie Irving wants to play, that's what Kyrie Irving wants to play. But I feel like Twitch is the wrong place to communicate to your audience. It's the wrong place to have an opinion or a position at your current job. Kyrie Irving is going to have to grow up and show the organization and show the world that basketball is his number one priority. And he has not demonstrated that in the past couple of years. Kyrie Irving, if you want that long-term max contract, if you want Nike to continue to make your signature shoe, if you don't want endorsers to drop from you from the wayside, you're going to have to do a little better. You're going to have to try a little harder. You're going to have to show you're going to have to show your doubters that you mean business. Basketball is your number one priority moving forward. And that's what Kyrie Irving is going to have to do. He's going to have to prove out a shadow of a doubt that his availability is not going to be a number one issue. Yes, other teams would love to have the services of a Kyrie Irving, but there's only a few teams that can just straight out, if Kyrie Irving becomes a free agent, if he opts out and becomes a free agent, there's only a handful of teams that can sign him to a max contract. And of those handful of teams, if he goes to those teams are not going anywhere anytime soon. So basically, you're just going to those teams to just get the money. That's basically what this boils down to. And half of those organizations know that the only reason why you're signed to them is because you want your max money. And you may not cause waves in the first year, but in the second year, you're going to start causing waves as far as wanting to be traded to a contending team. So you got teams that are half of those teams that have that type of those resources, have that in the back of their mind going like, yo, wait, if we sign them to a max contract, is everything going to be roses throughout the whole duration of this contract? And of the contending ball clubs, the contending teams that are contending for championships, they don't have the cap resources anyway to even get you close to a max contract. So your best option is Sean Marks doing a sign and trade where you sign a max contract with the Brooklyn Nets, but you get immediately traded to another ball club. And of those contending teams, what pieces are they going to give the Brooklyn Nets? Memphis is going to give up pieces for Kyrie Irving? No. Boston? They've been there, done that. The Lakers, what do they have other than Anthony Davis? Clippers, not interested. Suns, okay, we may got some draft picks and a couple of players, but it's not going to be anything of importance for the Brooklyn Nets. We still got Chris Paul. Kyrie Irving is stuck like Chuck, and he's going to have to figure this out. Like, hey man, they mean business. He's going to have to show and prove. If he wants that max contract, he's going to have to do a little bit more than playing on Twitch. Anyways, your boy, I'm up out of here. I'll see you guys later. Deuces.